Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video lecture in relation to business economics. In the earlier sessions, after completion of Unit 1 of Chapter 1, we started Unit 2 of Chapter 1, in which we discussed about what is the central economic problem for any economy or society, what kind of questions any type of economic system should answer, namely what to produce, how to produce, and for whom to produce, and what provisions should be made for economic growth. So, these fundamental questions of any society shall be answered by the economic system, whatever the system that may be. So, it could be a capitalist economy or a socialist economy or a mixed economy. But the questions remain the same. What to produce includes how much to produce also, what quantity to be produced also. That is in relation to the selection of goods and services which have to be produced in a society. How to produce is a selection of technology, we can say, or the process of production, we can say. For whom to produce is about distribution of goods and services to different segments of the society, how already produced goods should be distributed among the members of the society is answered by the question for whom to produce. And what provision should be made for economic growth is all about savings and investment, because it is not about the current consumption, it is mostly about future progress. So, out of the goods which are produced, whenever we use the word goods, it also includes services. Every time we don't have to say goods and services, goods and services. Generally, when we use goods, it is easier to understand, so we use that. That does not mean services is not included when we use the word goods. So whenever anything is produced, then that can have two purposes. One, a portion of that can be used now, consumed now, and a portion of that can be stored for future consumption. The second part is what this question answers. How much provision should be made for economic growth in future? Means how much should be sacrificed in the current consumption has to be decided by that particular question. And of course, as we already discussed, every economic system, irrespective of the nature, name, or whatever it may be, ultimately it depends upon the address of two core things. One is production, second one is distribution. So these two things are going to matter in any type of economy. However, how these central problems are solved is not going to be same. In some type of economy like capitalist economy, yes, the problems are addressed and the economy tries to solve those problems, but in a different way. In socialist economy, the same thing happens in a different way. Mixed economy happens in a khichdi way, where both capitalistic and socialistic principles will be applied. Practically speaking, let us not worry much about mixed economy. Why? Because there is no new policy in that. It is always about a mix of both capitalist economy and socialist economy. How much to be mixed, that can be the decision of the society. So nothing new actually to understand about mixed economy. There are no principles particularly governing mixed economy. However, in capitalist economy, there is a theory, there are certain principles, or we can call them as some characteristics which are all existent in a capitalist economy. Same way, there will be some characteristics or features of a socialist economy. Mixed economy contains both of them in whatever proportions the country would like to choose. And as we already discussed in the previous class, while understanding these type of economic systems, we should not be biased. We should learn them very objectively, and at the same time, we should not be also in a wrong impression that really there is something called capitalism, really there is something called socialism that is both actually non-existing in the real world. Though it looks like certain countries have chosen more capitalistic principles, very few countries have chosen socialistic principles, but it is not the reality that they are they had or have any kind of 100% adherence to the theories of capitalism or socialism. Not possible. So, practically speaking, practically every economy in the world is a mixed economy. Not only India, in fact, every economy in the world is a mixed economy. Only difference is anyway, mixed economy includes both capitalistic and socialistic principles. Certain economies have more ingredient of capitalism. Certain other economies will have more ingredients of socialism. Purely capitalism, purely socialism is just impossible. It cannot exist also. Both are not possible to exist in their 100% form as of now. To the extent of the knowledge of current human civilization, never it so happened that they could exist in their purest form. Whenever they existed, they resulted in chaos. They resulted in almost world wars, also, in one way, we can say. And then naturally, the human beings have learned from those mistakes. Societies, civilizations have learned from those mistakes. And now, what is the world order? Mostly, it is always a mix of both capitalistic and socialistic principles. Once again, will there not be any inclination? Will mix means exactly 50-50? Never. Nobody is talking about 50-50. We don't know. Maybe something like in America, it may be 70-30, like 70% capitalism, 30% socialism. Maybe in a country like China, it may be like, for example, 40-60. Let us say 40% capitalism or 60% socialism. Maybe countries like India, it is 50-50. It's all maybe. We are not the ones to quantify, and actually nobody can quantify. It is only examples to understand. Only from a perspective that, okay, there are certain countries where the ingredient of capitalism is little more than socialism. That's it. How much more? What is the quantity? This is not a measurement that is possible. Same way, there are countries where socialism is little bit more predominantly visible. So how much more? Again, we cannot exactly tell that. So both types of economies, in essence, in reality, do not exist. Always, what exists in reality are mixed economy. However, every mixed economy naturally has to use certain socialistic principles and certain capitalistic principles also. So what is our job here is to identify, in theory, what are those capitalistic principles or features or characteristics of a capitalist economy. Same way, what are the characteristics of a socialist economy? And since these are two opposite, these two are completely opposite in nature. So we can very clearly say these two have a inverse relationship. If capitalism is in one direction, socialism will be in opposite direction. We have that relationship, which means whatever the advantage of capitalism is, that will become the disadvantage of socialism, and vice versa. Means disadvantage of capitalism becomes advantage of socialism. So both of them will have certain positives and negatives, like any theory, any philosophy, any theory in the world, any principle in the world will have both positives and negatives. Once again, I'm repeating, it is now not our job to judge whether positives are more than negatives, negatives are more than positives, is it good or bad for society. It is none of our business. We may have our personal opinion, but we do not have any kind of influence over the society where we can decide this is better, that is not better, something like that. So it is the society or the country or the economy that decides which is better for them collectively. So no individual opinion generally matters. Does it mean individuals should not have opinions? I'm not saying that. What I'm only saying is this is the time where we are supposed to learn the principles, not to judge them. That is one common precaution I usually give before understanding this theory of capitalist economies and socialist economies. Now let us start with capitalist economies. What are the features of them? And of course, in the existing global scenario, majorly throughout the world, what is the predominant economic system currently is definitely capitalism. No doubt about it. Most countries in the world are using capitalistic principles only. It is definitely predominant, no doubt about that. It is a force in the current global scenario. That is a fact. We just need to understand, or we just need to recognize that fact. We like it, we don't like it, that doesn't matter. But the reality is that capitalistic system is the predominant economic system currently. That is a fact. Which means what? Which means the means of production means the resources which are required for conducting the production process are owned and controlled by private individuals for profit. In a nutshell, that's what capitalism is all about. What is that? Simply private property. Capitalism allows private property to exist. Means any individual can own a property, and what can that property be? It could be anything. It could be land, it could be buildings, machinery, money, materials which are required for production. And if you just observe, all these M's are all part of the resources which are required for the production process. We can even sometimes call them as factors of production. What all factors of production will be there? Many factors will be there. In general, if we say land, yes, can it be owned by an individual as a private property? Absolutely possible in capitalistic societies. Can machines be owned by an individual? Yes, absolutely possible. Somebody can say, this land is mine. They can say that because private property is allowed. Machine is mine, he can say. It is my money, they can say. So when there is a private property principle in socialism, anybody can say this is mine, my word will be more in capitalism. So that is the main thing in relation to capitalism. And what is the driving force of capitalism? Simply is profit motive. Why any capitalist or an industrialist or a businessman will do business? Why does he do all these activities of business like production and distribution? Profit motive is the driving force. That is another feature of capitalism. Of course, all of them will have in detail, in points by point, what is the basic, we can say, backbone of capitalism and what are the features of capitalism. In detail, we will look at them. However, basically, what is that differentiating point? There are so many differentiating points, but when you go to the essence of it, what is the differentiating point between socialism and capitalism? We can conclude is that is basically the private property. Private property is the biggest differentiating factor. If in case of socialism is in existence in a society, private property will not be allowed. In case of capitalism, private property is allowed. That is a very core difference. Private property is allowed in capitalism. In socialism, it is not allowed. In socialism, for example, there is no private property. Every property belongs to public property only. Every property will be treated as public property only. Nobody can say this is my property. Everything, whether it is land, buildings, machinery, money, everything, it is ours. So it is always about the society's common property. So that's what socialism generally thinks about. Already some people are thinking, how is it possible and all. I told you, there is no real application of all these things exactly in the same way. There will be a mix always. So don't even think about the real application of these things. Just understand the features from a theoretical point of view more than a practical point of view. That is better learning process, particularly about these theories. There are hundreds of pages, actually thousands and lakhs of pages of books are written about these theories. And don't expect that you are going to understand them and apply them in real life just by knowing about them in some points here in ICA material. This is very a nutshell of what capitalism is all about or socialism is all about. What is the basic principles? That's it. The summary of everything, the essence of those things is given here. Keep that limitation there only. Don't try to expand it further is my suggestion. So what is the basic thing related to capitalism? One thing is private property. Second thing is profit motive. These are the two major things in relation to capitalistic society as features we can call them, right? And what happens in capitalism generally? Who will determine the economic activity? The businesses will determine the economic activity. There is no much role by the governments. Who will determine the economic activity? Economic activity once again means same production, distribution. Who will decide how much to produce, what to produce, everything. All the questions, for whom to produce, all these things, who will decide? In capitalistic societies, businesses will determine. They will determine the economic activity. So ideally what happens in capitalism is government has a very limited role in the management of economic affairs under this system. Government will not be involved much in the economic affairs under this system. So one way we can say the economy is in an autopilot mode. Government generally will not interfere except when there is a great problem or issue that has arisen, something like coronavirus recently, or in 2008 global financial crisis, the US government has induced huge amount of money into the market. So those things are all government interventions which will happen even in capitalistic societies, but not on a regular basis. Exceptionally only that happens. Ideally, normally, under regular circumstances, as per theory of capitalism, government should not interfere in the economic affairs of the system. Businesses themselves will determine the economic activity. Whatever happens to them, let it happen to them, is the general philosophy of capitalism. Once again, no particular examples can be taken where there is a pure capitalism. Though we generally talk about these countries as if they are capitalistic countries, US, UK, Germany, Japan, Singapore, etc., etc. However, there is nothing that any country can be called as pure form of capitalism. That is not possible. Yes, they do show some features of being a capitalist economy, yes. And they are a little bit more inclined towards a capitalist economy, yes. No doubt. They do have private property and profit motive being their driving force, yes. Naturally, if that is the only thing, if you look at most of the countries in the current world are capitalism only, because most of them have fundamentally these two things in their production and distribution system of economy. In the production and distribution resources, private property is mostly allowed in every country. And whatever the organizations are there and individuals are there who are working in the production and distribution process, why are they doing? Profit motive. So if that is the sense, almost every country in the world we can say is a capitalist economy. However, we cannot call that as a pure form of capitalism, though mostly they are all capitalistic countries in this current scenario throughout the world. So compared to say 50-60 years back, definitely more countries have become capitalistic countries now. Even though China for namesake is called as a communist country, socialistic principles and all, in reality the essence of using the principles mostly happens through capitalistic principles nowadays. So rather than calling it as socialism, China nowadays can be called as a social capitalism or public sector capitalism. That is also capitalism. So ultimately, the principles of capitalism are more prevailing now in the current world than socialistic principles. Yes, that is a fact. We like it or not, it is a fact. However, that cannot be called as a pure form of capitalism either. Why? Because it is not possible to have pure form of capitalism at all. But there are some other names here you should remember in relation to a capitalist economy. We call this as a capitalist economy. Another name for this is also called as a free market economy, and very important, another Latin word is laissez-faire economy it is called. So any word is used in the questions, you should be able to identify them. Capitalist economy or a free market economy or a laissez-faire economy, this is a Latin word. So earlier these type of Greek and Latin words were used to represent certain things in a bigger way. So this is the free market, simply speaking. Laissez-faire is about free market economy. That is what capitalist economy's main feature is. However, there are many other characteristics of capitalism or a capitalist economy. Once again, are we going to buy out all these things? Definitely not. Why? Because for two reasons. One, there is not going to be any question that asks us, kindly state 5 features of capitalist economy for 5 marks, like that. No, because this exam model for foundation is not descriptive, it is objective in nature. So, no need to remember any of these points as they are, because we don't have to write them. There is no descriptive examination for this paper. That is the first reason why we don't need to buy out it. And second point is, once again, The subject itself is a concept oriented subject. Understanding is more important than remembering. So rather than just remembering certain things, we need to understand the essence of each of them. That is where the focus should be more. But again, should we remember at all something or not? Answer is definitely yes. Memory is also equally important. You cannot say suddenly in the exam this word is used. Say laissez faire is the word that has been used in the exam. You cannot say I don't know Italian, I don't know Latin language. How can I understand? You should. You don't need to understand that. You should remember that word. Like in the first chapter, there was some Greek word talking about economia, which from which the economics word has been like formed. You cannot say I don't know Greek language. Nobody knows Greek language. I also don't know Greek language. I also don't know Latin language. Only those people who have them as mother tongues will have learning of those languages. But there you cannot say I don't remember and all. There you have to remember. So memory is required where simple terminology. Whereas subject is not about only remembering the terminology. Subject is about basically understanding the concept of it. That is why understanding is more and more important than memory as far as this particular subject is concerned. But is there something that we should not remember these things? Definitely yes. But they should be understood in such a way that there is no need of memory. For example, capitalism runs on two major features. One is private property, second one is profit motive. Two P's. Easy to remember. We can just easily say, okay, this is one P, this is private property, and there is one more P, that is profit motive. Capitalism runs on two P's. Okay, that should be remembered for life, not only till the examinations of foundation. That is how these things have to be remembered. Conceptual level things, core things, basic things always have to be remembered, but not in a by hearting mode or a memorization mode. Like we all remember who we are and how we all remember how to walk. We don't memorize it daily. We all remember how to ride a bicycle. If once you know how to ride a bike, you know how to ride a bike, or how to drive, how to swim. You don't remember them. You know them. But that also requires a series of instructions to your brain. That happens automatically. And when it comes to the fundamental things, we need to be reaching that level, not to give a conscious effort of memorizing certain things or by hearting certain things, like you would have done, some of you at least, at the +2 level. That is what I am asking you not to do. So don't try to by heart these things. Just understand these points. What are the features of capitalism? First point, as we already discussed, is about right to private property. Private property includes anything. It could be related to any type of the factors of production or sources, we can call them, or means of production, we can call them, whatever way you call them. Land, factories, machinery, mines, tools, money, all of them can be owned by any person. So they have a right on that. If somebody says this is mine means not, that belongs to me. That's it. So like that, there is a possibility of private ownership in capitalism. But if you observe, some of them, particularly like let us say natural resources sometimes are not actually belonging to anybody. Land, if you look at the reality of it, not the feature of capitalism, in capitalist society, of course, not only that, even in India also, everybody can own a land, and we see this always. Somebody says this land is mine, so this land belongs to so and so. We see boards also, various places. This land belongs to so and so. Trespassers will be prosecuted. Means what? Some person is claiming ownership on that land. But once you just go little bit deeper in reality, how can an individual own a land? Individual comes and goes. Land stays forever, isn't it? Individual has not created the land. He might have at least bought something. He might have just made something like machinery or a new program or a software. That's okay, understandable in the form of private ownership. When it comes to land, the logic of private ownership does not suit. Why? Because individual is a short-lived person. land is eternal. How can a short-lived person own any property which is eternal? That doesn't suit the logic. However, that is how the capitalism works. That is how the private property works. And right from kings and conquerors' ages, even now, till now, what has been the major, one way we can say, the reason for conflict, why Alexander was trying to go and conquer the world, or why there were so many battles between different kings. It is all about ownership of land. I own this much land, your land belongs to me, I have control and purview on your land, is always the power, which has always been the case. And if you can extend it to the countries also, what is a country? We have drawn borders geographically, artificially, and we are saying this is our country, means our land. Like that, land is something which is natural resource, but human beings have made it in such a way that this belongs to me, this belongs to my people, and we are all dividing it according to our convenience. We can call that a country or a state or a district. For convenience it is one point, and for ownership it is another point. And like that, for every individual also, for every person also, there is a possibility that that person can say that this land belongs to me. This is my land, he can say. But practically the point is, he will come, he will put that board, this is my land. After a few years he will not be there, but land will be still there. And maybe it goes to their legal heirs. He will also put a board, this is my land. He will not be there, somebody else will come. Or they will sell to somebody and that land becomes the ownership, or the ownership of that land will be transferred to somebody else. So it only just transfers from person to person. Land will not go anywhere, it will stay there only. That is the nature of it. But though it is paradoxical, though it is very funny actually for a temporary traveler in this world to say that this belongs to me, still that is the reality of it. And that's what private ownership creates. And private ownership gives one way authority to a person to tell that this land belongs to me, this factory belongs to me, this machine belongs to me, mines, money, all these things are mine. They are all belonging to me. Like that any person can say in capitalism, there is no problem. So owners are free to use them in any manner, in whatever the way they like. That is their desire. So government may put some restrictions for the benefit of the society, but that does not interfere much in the process of utilizing these resources. No. Government will put restrictions. Don't think I have a private property means I can do any illegal activity on that private property. That is not possible. There will be rules, there will be acts, statutes, regulations. Those will be there even in capitalist society also from the government. However, under normal circumstances, government does not interfere. It will let the private property owners to deal with those resources what they have in the manner what they feel good, as long as it is not very dangerous to the society. Government generally does not interfere into that. So that is what is right to private property, we can say. Then the second thing is freedom of enterprise. Freedom of enterprise is about, enterprise means basically starting an activity of production, let us call it for understanding purposes. So freedom of enterprise means what to produce is to be decided by whom. Is government going to tell, okay boss, Mr. X, please come here, from tomorrow onwards you go and manufacture plastic bottles, and the government will call Mr. Y and asks Mr. Y, okay boss, tomorrow onwards you go and produce wheat, like that government will tell? No. There is a freedom of enterprise to each individual, particularly for producers, and not only for producers, even for consumers also there is a freedom to choose any type of economic activity. So that is their choice. What they want to do, what they want to produce, what type of economic activity they want to perform, that is their choice. So naturally a producer is free to set up any type of firm and produce goods and services of his choice. Government is not going to restrict that, regulate that, or directly the government is not going to interfere in the freedom of an individual to set up any type of organization to produce goods and services. So normally already some people are thinking, how can it be possible? In India, for example, somebody comes and says that, okay, I am free and I will start manufacturing guns from tomorrow. I will manufacture bombs from tomorrow. Is it okay? No, sir, that is not okay. We are not talking about exceptional things. Somebody who starts manufacturing illegal drugs, narcotics, without any government permission, not possible. Even normal pharmaceutical industry also, somebody just like that cannot open and start manufacturing, not possible. So there will be certain guidelines, no doubt, certain government direction, no doubt. However, that does not mean government is interfering. That is a government's duty to have a overall monitoring of what people are doing. Having a overall monitoring is different. Interfering in the day-to-day affairs is different. Ideally, in a free market society, freedom of enterprise will be given to the individuals, like consumers also and producers also. They choose what they want to do. Whatever they want to do, they can do. Whatever does not mean illegal. Within the purview of law, within the framework of legal things, definitely they are free to set up any type of firm. For example, all of you have chosen to become chartered accountants or chosen to join the course of chartered accountancy. That you have chosen, government did not ask you to choose. A lot of people will choose some other profession, that is their choice. So somebody is choosing a type of business, somebody is choosing a type of profession, is their choice. Government will not interfere in that directly, though sometimes it may promote certain type of businesses, sometimes it may give some incentives, but that is all about encouraging certain types of businesses for social welfare. Only for that purpose government might interfere. Otherwise, under normal circumstances, the free market economies will definitely have freedom of enterprise, by the way, both for consumers as well as producers. That continues actually with freedom of economic choice also. Both are more or less same. Freedom of enterprise, freedom of economic choice, more or less same. Nothing much different, because economic enterprise is also about economic activity. Economic choice means also more or less the same. So what are the choices that people will make generally? These are the choices. Consumption. What to consume? Is government telling you you have to consume this soap only? Are you directed by the government? No. Is government telling you have to use this shampoo only? No. Consumption is your choice. Which notebook you should purchase, which calculator you should purchase, which pen you should use, which bag you should use, which shampoo you should use, everything, which toothbrush, toothpaste you should use, everything on a daily basis, whatever you are consuming. Nobody is telling you. Nobody is putting any restriction on you. You are free to choose what to consume. And same way work also. Nobody can put force on somebody to work. That is called bonded labor. If that is really enforced, that okay, these people have to work here only, if like that any rules are made, that is a bonded labor, which is abolished even in India. Nowhere in the world it generally works, but yeah, some places it is there in disguised forms. But compared to the earlier centuries, no doubt, nowadays people have their choice of work. They can choose whatever they want to work, wherever they want to work. Nobody can force them. That is another choice that choice or freedom that people will have. These are from the normal common public point of view. From a capitalist point of view, from an entrepreneur point of view, production also is a choice of an entrepreneur. Government is not going to tell the producers to produce a certain item only under normal circumstances. Exceptions are exceptions. Once again, you have to understand. Now, if you look at the biggest capitalism in the world, even America, that is United States of America, has instructed the automobile companies like General Motors to manufacture ventilators in the time of Corona. In the time of COVID times, government of America has instructed companies in America, which is the most capitalistic country we can call. So that is exceptional case. There you cannot say just because of that it is not a capitalism. That is very exceptional case. Never so happens normally. Government will not direct the production activity of any enterprise in capitalism. They are free. Whatever they want to produce. Okay, boss, you want to manufacture cars? Manufacture, your choice. Okay, you want to manufacture guns? Manufacture. That is ultimate freedom. Not everybody will get that. So certain countries with some licenses, they give permissions to manufacture arms and ammunitions also. They give permissions to manufacture chemicals, they give permissions to manufacture any other consumer goods or machineries. Everything that we consume and use on a daily basis is manufactured by somebody. And the question is simple: who is telling them to manufacture? Nobody is telling them to manufacture. They are manufacturing because they wanted to manufacture, they wanted to sell, they wanted to make profit. So all these things, production, exchange, consumption, work, everything is a choice that is to be made by the individuals, and they are free to make that choice. That is one of the features of capitalism, that is called freedom of economic choice. So first one is right to private property, second one is the freedom of enterprise. There is a freedom here. Another freedom is freedom of economic choice, more or less the same. And as we already discussed in the core principles of capitalism, profit motive is the driving force always. Always and always, profit motive is the driving force for any economy, which can be called as a capitalist economy or a laissez-faire economy, or we can call it as a free market economy. In all those cases, what drives people to do these things? Profit. That is, the desire for profits will be driving the entrepreneurs to do the production. Ultimately, what is the objective of every entrepreneur is maximizing the profits. That is the reality. Somebody may say, I am doing social service and all. Those are okay. Those are separate organizations are there for that. But normal economic entities which are producing or giving services, objective is always to maximize the profits. So that is not bad or something negative. Profit motive itself is not bad. However, if you do bad things also to get profit, that is a different story. So that becomes a ethical or moral issue. We are not talking about that. By basically basic reasons, by basic feature, any capitalist economy, any organization in a capitalist economy will always have profit motive. That is the nature of it. And not only that, the capitalist economies will allow consumer sovereignty. And you would have heard this also already. Consumer is king. And under capitalism, naturally, that's what it really follows. Consumer is always the king under the capitalism. Consumer sovereignty means that the consumer has a power. Consumer has a power who will ultimately decide, not directly but indirectly. Ultimately, the consumer will decide how much of goods or services should be produced and in what quantities they have to be produced, what goods to be produced. So in other words, if you relate it to the earlier challenges that we had or questions we had, which are basically about what to produce. So what to produce is a question which is answered by whom in capitalism? By consumer in general. Okay, is consumer going to capitalist's ears and whispering, okay boss, I want to buy this, so please produce this? Nothing like that. It automatically happens in the form of a demand that is created by consumers. And when there is a demand for a certain type of goods and services, because they are preferred by the consumers, automatically the entrepreneurs will produce those goods and services. Imagine there is no demand. Imagine the consumers are not preferring such services. Then that's it. There is no such service which could be given, or no such product which could be manufactured. Ultimately, there is no need for manufacturing of such goods or services. Just for understanding purposes, let us say now there is any other particular organization, say, which is earlier manufacturing, say, DVDs or CDs. These were some type of organizations were there which were manufacturing DVDs or CDs. So these organizations, when they have manufactured a DVD or a CD earlier, now consumers are not asking them. Consumers have literally nowadays chosen not to really worry about these type of products. So will the organizations still manufacture them? Will they really manufacture them still? Answer is no. Why? Because there is no demand for such type of products. So whether it is a CD or DVD, there is no demand for such type of products. So what happens? Naturally, nobody, no industrialist, no company will manufacture them. So the point is, once again, most important aspect here is all about what is the preference of the consumer. Whatever is preferred by the consumers, that only will be manufactured by the entrepreneurs. So naturally, who is directing the overall market? Ultimately, consumer. Ultimately, it is all consumer who will determine what to produce and how much to produce. They will direct the entrepreneur to increase or decrease the quantity of supply and quantity of production as well as distribution. So that is what we can call this as consumer sovereignty. And not only that, it can be a point of economic choice also. Sovereignty here can be understood as a choice also, because nobody can force a consumer to buy anything. Consumer is free to consume or use any kind of product or service that is their choice. Nobody can really force a consumer. That is also a consumer sovereignty. Then another feature of capitalism is competition. Naturally, when there is a capitalist economy, there will be more number of sellers, more number of enterprises and firms and businesses, among which there will be competition. So one of the very important features of capitalism is there will be competition. Good or bad, one will come to that analysis part later, but definitely that helps in bringing out the best efficiency out of the buyers and sellers, since there is competition. Imagine there is no competition, only one type of organization is only manufacturing a particular kind of goods and services, and nobody else is there to do that. If that is the case, then that person, whoever is giving that goods and service, need not bring the best of him. He can just be reluctant. He can be just giving it less efficiently. When there is competition, everyone wants to win. Everyone wants to have that spirit of winning. For that purpose, they improve their efficiency. That is quite natural, right? That is another feature of capitalism. And of course, as we have been talking about since the beginning, one of the other features or characteristics of capitalism is that absence of government interference. See, once we understand these features, some of them will be same thing, actually will be positive also, negative also. So once we understand features well, analysis of what is it and all is becoming easy. We'll go through those things quickly in the next classes. But understanding the features of capitalism is the core thing, we can say, which covers this entire chapter one way. Why? Because once you understand the features of capitalism, you can understand whether it is good or bad. Same thing can be good also, same thing can be bad also. If it is good, we call it good. If it is bad, we call it bad. And what is good for capitalism, that becomes bad for socialism. And what is bad for capitalism, that becomes good for socialism. And whatever the characteristic features we have about capitalism, reverse them. Just put that no right to private property, socialism. No freedom of enterprise, socialism. No freedom of economic choice, socialism. No profit motive, socialism. So once you know one thing, you know the other thing automatically. So in the entire chapter of this, the core aspect what should be understood, again, not remembered or by hearted, understood is the essence of this. What are the key features of a capitalist economy? One, right to private property, freedom of enterprise, everybody has a choice, and profit motive is the driving force. Consumer sovereignty exists because ultimately whatever is preferred by the consumer is what the producers have to cater. No option for them in capitalism. And competition is a very important feature of capitalism, which brings out better efficiency and better or efficient usage of resources. And another very important factor is, in capitalism, absence of government interference will be there. Of course, as we already discussed, there is nothing called as pure capitalist economy. That is why you cannot find any place where there is an absolute absence of government interference. Not possible. There will be in reality some government interference. However, from theory point of view, not really. From theoretical perspective, if there is a purely capitalist economy, if there is anything which is not centrally planned or controlled by the government, in that system, all the economic decisions and activities are guided by self-interest. And very important point, now we are reaching that, is price mechanism. Who is not guiding the economy is government. Who is not interfering into the economy is government. And who is directing, what is directing the economy is price mechanism, which is automatic. It is not about any particular action. Nobody is going to manipulate the price mechanism. automatically this happens without any direction and control by governmental authorities. That is the very important feature of capitalistic economies, where government interference will be almost non-existence. And what will be guiding the economic system? Simply the price mechanism will guide the economic system called as capitalism, and other names you have to remember. What are the other names for this type of system? Capitalism is one part, one name. Then free market economy also can be called, or also it can be called as a laissez-faire economy. Either way, what are the features of all this type of systems, theoretically at least, are these? Once again, right to private property, that is first thing. Second thing, freedom of enterprise, that is the second thing. And third thing is freedom of economic choice, profit motive is the fourth one. Then consumer sovereignty is the fifth one. Then we have competition, that is the sixth one. And absence of government interference is the seventh one. These are only indicative. Once again, don't think that there are only 7 features, there are no other features of capitalism, nothing like that. Indicatively, in general, these are the key features of the capitalist economy. Once we understand this, we can extend this discussion to any direction. From this only we can understand what are the positives and negatives of capitalism. From this only we can understand opposite of capitalism, that is socialism also. From this only we can understand positives and negatives of socialism also. And once we have both, from this only we can also go to mixed economy. So the guiding factor for the entire chapter is going to be capitalism. But ultimately, what is the core feature of capitalism? Ultimately, what is going to be the major thing in relation to the capitalism? The fundamental feature of capitalism is, that is, right to private property. That is the fundamental feature of capitalism. So like, for example, if anybody calls and asks what will be the fundamental feature of a bird in general, of course there are birds without wings also, but in general, what is the fundamental feature of a bird is it will have wings. And what is the fundamental feature of a fish? It can swim in the water, it will be in the water naturally. Like that, what is the fundamental feature of a capitalism is, it is a right to private property. These are the things to be understood very well, and we can continue this discussion in the coming sessions. From this only, we don't need to actually add anything else. Once we know these points, every other point in this chapter almost is already covered. All that we are going to do is, we are just going to tweak it a little bit this way and that way. And we are only taking some kind of sides. When we talk about positives of capitalism, we talk about positives. When we talk about negatives, we talk about negatives. Does it mean we don't like capitalism? Or does it mean we like capitalism, we love capitalism? Nothing like that. No judgment required, no feeling, no attachment required. We are only trying to understand analytically and objectively what does capitalism mean. Once we understand that, everything else will be easily, we can say, derived from these points. So be very thorough with these points, read them very carefully, and we can continue this discussion in the next class by taking it to other types of systems and also understanding the advantages and disadvantages of capitalism, and vice versa related to socialism also. We'll do the same exercise.